Boker Tov, everyone. Good morning. Let us begin our time together by singing the words of Moda or Moda Ani, thanking God for the blessing of today. Before you, living and enduring sovereign, for you have mercifully restored my soul within me. Great is your faithfulness. Today we are well into our 5th week of counting the Omer, but before we begin, let us say our prayer together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedeshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sefirat haOmer. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who sanctifies us with mitzvot and commands us concerning the counting of the Omer. Hayom shlosha shloshim yom shehem arba'a shavuot v'chamisha yamim la'omer. Today is 33 days, which is 4 weeks and 5 days of the Omer. And today, this particular day has a special name. And its name is Lag BaOmer. The Lamed in Lag BaOmer stands for 30, and the Gimel stands for 3. Every letter has a numerical equivalent. And so today is actually a joyous holiday around the 33rd day of counting the Omer, the 33rd day since the beginning of Passover. Before I go into teaching and talking a little bit about what makes today special, I just want to thank all of you for being here. So I offer you a big Boker Tov to Sarah and Andrea, Diane and Jay, Tom and Michelle, Pam and Marla, Riva and Don. Good to have you back, Don. Rabbi Catherine, good to see you. Barbara Riker, Debbie Weiss, Hannah Brooks, and everyone else who is here. Oh, and Bonnie, so good to see you here as well. Everyone else who is here, thank you so much for being present, for being here in sacred community. So today is Lag BaOmer. You might have gone to bed last night or woken up this morning to see news of a Lag BaOmer celebration gone awry in Israel. On Lag BaOmer, there is a tradition for people to go to Mount Meron. You might wonder why that is. Well, in order to do that, I want to give you a little bit of back information of what Lag BaOmer is truly all about. So we know that this is a 49-day journey through the Omer. Of course, the Omer there is referring to this Omer period. The 33rd day of our counting is what this holiday is all about. And there are teachings that say that there were thousands of disciples of Akiva who died within the first 32 days of the Omer. And the reason they died was because they didn't treat one another with respect. I'm just going to kind of put that to the side for now. But on the 33rd day of the Omer, the destruction ended. And so Lag BaOmer becomes a celebration because that horrific piece of history had finally concluded. Lag BaOmer also happens to be, according to tradition, the anniversary of the death of a great rabbi, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who happened to be one of Akiva's disciples, main disciples, after so many of his students had died. And according to tradition, Shimon Bar Yochai asked that on the anniversary of his death, it not be filled with mourning or sadness, but rather it be filled with joy and celebration. Mount Meron is where Shimon Bar Yochai is said to have been buried. And so each year, many Jews go up to Mount Meron in northern Israel in order to celebrate by the eternal resting place of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, this rabbi from the 2nd century. That's why so many people went there. And I want to talk a little bit about Shimon Bar Yochai and the kind of person that he was and why it is that people really wanted to celebrate. When everyone went to Mount Meron, they wanted to honor the legacy of a really fascinated, well-learned man. Unfortunately, they didn't keep in mind the fact that, one, we're in the midst of a pandemic, and two, having thousands of people come together in a small space is a very scary and very threatening thing. And we know that because so many people chose to gather on Mount Meron, at least 100 people were injured, some of them incredibly severely, and at least 44 people died as a result. An absolute tragedy to a day that is supposed to be about joy and celebration, about Torah learning, and about making our way through this journey. The teachings behind Shimon Bar Yochai are vast, and the Talmud includes quite a lot of interesting teachings as to the kind of person who he was. It actually begins, there's a Talmud passage that talks about how there were 4 men in Rome. At that time, Israel was ruled by the Romans, and the 4 men were talking about the things that the Romans were doing to take care of the area. And Shimon Bar Yochai said, everything they're doing, they're just doing for themselves. They don't care about us. Now, of course, when people heard about that, Shimon Bar Yochai's life was in danger. And so he ran up into the hills, found a cave where he would be with his son Eliezer, and the 2 of them spent 12 years inside of this cave, praying and studying and devoting themselves entirely to God. They didn't leave the cave at all for 12 years. The tradition says that a carob tree grew in the middle of it, giving them the sustenance that they need, and a brook of water went through so that they would have the water that they needed during their 12 years. Well, what happened? After 12 years were up, the person who had been in charge was no longer alive, and therefore the edict for Shimon Bar Yochai to be killed, it was stopped. And so Shimon Bar Yochai and his son were allowed to leave the cave and not have to worry about their lives being taken. So after 12 years of being in this cave, of fully dedicating themselves to God, Shimon Bar Yochai and Eliezer go outside, and they see fellow Israelites that are out there going about their everyday tasks. And Shimon Bar Yochai looks at them and says, how could you be spending your time worrying about gardening, worrying about getting food, worrying about all of these things? How could you not spend every single second of your life dedicating yourself to God? And he stared at someone and consumed them with the fire from his eyes. It's kind of like this really crazy comic book, right? He had this laser vision and was able to literally burn things up with his eyes. And that's what happened. And God says, whoa, no, you're not coming out and just destroying my earth. Absolutely not. Go back in the cave. And so he goes back in the cave for an entire year. And when he's in that cave again, he's dedicating his life, his entire self to praying to God. But when the year is up, he's allowed to leave that cave once more. And as he goes out, he sees someone who is gathering food and asks, what are you doing? And he says, well, I'm preparing for Shabbat. And Shimon Bar Yochai looks at the man and says, yes, that is a worthy task. Now, his son, Eleazar, did not have the same feeling. Eleazar was still very, very zealous, was focused solely on worrying about divine pursuits and prayer and study, and thought everyone should be spending every moment. So he was lighting things on fire, but Shimon Bar Yochai was putting out those fires and was bringing healing where his son could not. So this brings us to today's teaching for the counting of the Omer, which is a story of transformation. Shimon Bar Yochai had become so zealous, so self-centered after 12 years of being inside of this cave by himself with his son, with no outside influence, focused solely on God. He forgot what it meant to be human. He forgot what it meant to see the world through other people's perspectives, and he was unable to see any merit in anything other than the way in which he lived. He was so laser focused. And then, after a year more in the cave, after some more time to really think about why it was that God was not pleased with his actions, he was able to change his perspective and to make a transformation in himself. So that when he went back out and he saw fellow human beings, he could see, oh, there is something really divine and sacred here. Oh, perhaps I should be giving the benefit of the doubt after all. In our own journeys, as we find our own way, our way, of course, is not just a physical one. It is also an emotional one. It also relates to our very state of mind, of how it is that we interpret and understand and respond to everything that is going on around us. Shimon Bar Yochai learned to see the good in the actions of his fellow human beings. May we too learn to find blessing where previously we had not. So I want to bring us to the question for today, which is, what is a moment of internal transformation in your life? And just to spend some time reflecting on that for this day of the Omer. Now, of course, we're thinking about all of those people who were hurt in northern Israel. We're thinking about all those people who find themselves mourning today because of that tragedy. And we find ourselves wanting a prayer of comfort for everyone in our world, in India, locally, who is affected by COVID-19 or who is in need of any kind of healing, healing of mind, healing of body, or healing of spirit. So I invite you to join with me in singing these words in hopes that a speedy and complete recovery will come. Mi sheberach avotenu mekor habracha lehimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha lehavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah Hashlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Today at 2:30, as you know, will be the funeral for Tamar Davidson, someone who is so beloved by this congregation. And of course, I know many of us will want to be there for our cantor and his family, for Shali and her family, and everyone else as they mourn for an incredible human being. And then we'll be able to come together at the end of Lag BaOmer for Shabbat at 7 p.m. tonight. And I look forward to seeing you there. Of course, tomorrow we'll be right back here again for Counting the Omer. I hope everyone has a day filled with blessing and hope and positive transformation. And I look forward to seeing you later.